Let's rock and roll.
Welcome to Changing the Narrative with Red.
And Big Jabu.
What's your name again?
What's yours, Bert?
What's your government?
What's yours, Bert?
So anyway, we're here to share our lives and our journey in South Africa. Today is the second edition of
Testimony Tuesday.
And we got some heavy stuff to share today. Like, yes, last time Stacy shared his loss of his grandmother and missing the funeral and all that kind of stuff. So if you didn't check out last week, make sure you check out Testimony Tuesday from last week. You know what the date was?
What's
I don't
today's
remember.
Date? What's today's date?
I don't know what's going on. Look, I got my little scarf on because I'm taking, like y'all been seeing me with these braids, and I had to take them out. They were getting fuzzy, and it was just over. They lasted a good 3 weeks, but taking my braids out, and I look kind of crazy under here, so I'm just trying to save y'all from having to see what's going on under there. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, today we're going to be talking about our kids. Well, I'm going to be talking about our kids because it's something that's been kind of like weighing on me, especially as of late. Just because like I don't want to say like we're through it, but I feel like we've made like huge strides in like healing our family relationship and our family bond since, even before the time, leading up to our leaving. So let me just go back. So we have 5 kids between us. We have like a Brady Bunch.
Damn, that's a lot of kids.
We have like a Brady Bunch type of situation. So we have a big family, and with having like other parents and stuff, like I think it was kind of hard for the kids, like understanding that dynamic, even from when they were younger. But we have it's a kind of complicated family dynamic, but I feel like at the heart of it, like we all love each other, and that's the most important thing. So regardless of whatever hard stuff is going on, just if there's love, like really like love in your family, like you can get through anything. If everybody's willing to see the other person's side and kind of understand like what your background and the triggers that you have, if you're willing to really put effort into understanding each other and loving each other, like you can get through anything. So we told our kids that we were leaving probably
2 years, maybe?
2 years, about 2 years before we moved. A little
give or take.
Yeah, it might have been like maybe a year and a half. They were in 11th grade, and this was before the pandemic, right? That we actually decided that we were moving. It was actually right before the panoramic. And it was a lot of feelings. And I don't think that we were as sensitive as we should have been to their feelings, because later on there was a lot of acting out, a lot of anger, and by the time that all the kids were moved out of the house, like we weren't really speaking to our kids. They didn't want to talk to us. They were so angry, and they felt abandoned. And I think because, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, I think because like Stacy and I grew up in home situations that we couldn't wait to get out of, we just did not understand, like, why aren't you ready to leave? Like, why don't you, like why aren't we executing the plan? Because before, when we told them, like, look, we're want to get a plan together for each one of you to make sure you're on sure footing before we leave. One was going to the military. One had a really good job set up that helped with, a housing stipend. Um, our other two were going to college, and our oldest was already out on her own. So this really didn't affect her for like as far as a living situation, but obviously we were going to be further away. Um, I didn't anticipate the anger and like all the stuff from even just our family dynamics that we had not really dealt with all came to a head before we left. And then we found out we were going to be grandparents shortly before we were scheduled to leave. Well, a couple of months, obviously. It was a couple of months. It was probably about maybe 6 months. Maybe 6 months before we were supposed to leave.
Yeah, we had already had our flight booked. Everything was already done.
But we delayed, we pushed it back until after the baby was due so that we could be there for the birth and be there for a couple of weeks after the baby was born. It was not something that we anticipated, but we were in the mindset like, well, I mean, she decided to start her family early, and we can't change our plans because she decided to start a family.
But at the time, she was already living.
Yeah, she was already, living with her boyfriend, and we were like, we're not gonna change our plans. Like, we knew like our kids were going to have families and get married and do all this stuff, and we planned like for traveling for those things and stuff like that. But I'm like, this is the first thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're gonna be away. But I feel like now, like looking back after having done a lot of healing myself, like I think that we should have stayed a little bit longer. And I know that you probably don't agree, but I think that if we had stayed another year or two, we would have been able to still give them a soft landing place, during some of the hard times that they had, and be more physically present for them because they've been through a lot of stuff the last 2 years, and I feel like they wouldn't have had to have such a hard realization if we had stayed just a little bit longer.
So let me ask you a question. What do you think would have been different if we had stayed a year longer?
I think that if we had just stayed through like their first year of college, enlistment, like if they just knew that they had like a soft place to land for another year or so while they got their footing, like I could, like the space that they're in right now, the things that they're doing right now, I was so worried when we first moved. Like, I was worried. You know what I'm saying? Like, all the stuff that they, that they went through from point A all the way to now, I was very worried. Like, I'm so proud of them. All of our children have, like, they had about a year where they were just, like, all over the place. And I feel like now they're kind of, like, getting into adult mode and more understanding. They're more independent. I think that we could have been more supportive because, like, think about it, like our kids didn't grow up the way that we did. You know what I'm saying? I felt like when I moved out of my mom's house, I felt like I had been an adult for a long time. You know what I'm saying? I was the oldest. I had responsibilities, there were things that were expected of me, and, it was do or die in a lot of situations. Like, if you don't do what you're supposed to, like, the rent, like, the rent's not going to get paid, or, there were times where like we were, I won't, like we were never hungry, like we weren't, but we were not, we were poor, you know what I'm saying? And so I understood from a very young age like the value of money and how much things cost, and like being responsible for other people and stuff like that. Like I understood from a young age, and I felt like when I moved out, like I was ready, you know what I'm saying? And I never went back to my mom's house. And I think because our kids weren't raised that way, like we were very supportive and very involved in their lives, and they never really had to worry about anything because we were there for them. And I don't think we could understand, like, why don't you want to go out and be on your own? Like, why do you want, like, I don't even understand why you're so resistant to this. Like, we got a plan, like we're gonna get you together, like everything's gonna be fine. But they weren't ready, you know? And at 18, like you're still kids, you know, but we weren't allowed to be kids at that age. You know what I'm saying? Like we had adult responsibilities, and like we knew like once you become an adult, you need to get your ducks in a row and get going. You know? And I don't think that our kids were ready for that.
They was acting like they was ready for that.
They were enjoying having adult freedom.
But not adult responsibilities.
Right. They weren't ready for that part. You know what I'm saying? Like I think that, like I don't think that we stunted and coddled our kids. You know, they were very independent, but we were always there and supportive. Like if something happened, if something went wrong, they knew that they could count on us. They never had to worry about, you know, buying their own school clothes or whatever the case is. Like they knew they were gonna have new sneakers for school. Like they really didn't have to worry about anything until they got about 17, 18. And then it's like, okay, so
I
now
would say 16, 17.
Yeah, well, 16, they
16,
got
17.
bank accounts. They started their little part-time jobs, and we started making them like pay their own phone bill, and buying little stuff for the house and stuff, like just little responsibilities, just to make sure like they understood what it was, you know, what it was to go to the grocery store and buy stuff, or to budget your money so that you can make sure you got money for fun and you got money to pay your phone bill. You know what I'm saying? But I just feel like they just weren't ready. And I don't think like I understood, like, you know, there's some trauma that goes along with like having adult responsibilities as a teenager. You know what I'm saying? It makes it I think it kind of made me insensitive to our kids' feelings because they didn't grow up like that. You know, they just didn't. And you know, we wanted it that way, but at the same time, like I don't want to say that it hindered them, but we left them in a position that they weren't prepared to handle yet. What do you think?
I would love to have this conversation, like be a part 2 and my thoughts. But I think I'll be like all over the place because I have all kind of feelings, and I wouldn't know how to like lay it out because
Mm-hmm.
I'll be just everywhere with this. Because I mean, like you said, I left when I was 16, and I went back one time for like 3 months. I didn't leave because I wanted to be grown. I left because of other situations, and it wasn't that rough for me though. You know, I dropped out of high school. I went to Job Corps. I got my GED. I went to college. I got my high school diploma. You know, and I was on my own ever since. You know, so I'm with you. Like, why don't you want to be on your own? Because you acting like you want to be on your own.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're doing everything as if you want to be on your own. We had this saying: if you can spend a night out. What was it again?
If you got somewhere to stay tonight, you got somewhere to stay every night. You better have somewhere to stay every night.
Right. You know, and I understood that because I remember growing up when I was like 17, 18, 19. My mom would tell me I still had a curfew at 25 years old because it was her house. So I had to respect that. So if I was out hanging out like at 11 o'clock and couldn't be home by 1, 2 o'clock, she would just tell me, don't come home then. You know what I'm saying? I didn't like it because I didn't always have a plan to stay out all night.
Mm-hmm.
But I understood because it was her house and her rules. And I think some kids nowadays just don't respect rules, don't respect boundaries, and that was some of the issues that we had. You know.
But where you were living at and where you were hanging out at, like,
what?
For it to be like, don't come home, that's kind of dangerous.
No, nah.
I
lived in a pretty good area. I mean,
I'm just saying,
because she knew I was.
Well, Georgetown now probably wasn't the same Georgetown.
No. See, she knew what I was doing. She knew I was out with females, you know, drinking and doing whatever else. So she's like, well, if you can't come home, don't come home till tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And I would come home the next day. They up 7 o'clock in the morning. She's ironing the clothes for my other brothers. And I'm just going in, get dressed, and go to work. Mm-hmm. But again, the thing is, the kids nowadays, I don't think they have the toughness that we had growing up, because it's just so much easier now in my eyes. Like for instance, signing a job application. We had back in the days, we actually physically had to go. We had to go to Macro, Walmart, to do an application. Here, everything is done online. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So to me, it was just easy. It's easier now than it was then.
But this is all they know.
Yeah, I know that.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
I know that.
This is the environment that they grew up in. They don't know any different. So think about the stuff that your parents used to tell you about having to walk to school uphill both ways with no shoes and crazy shit that they used to say. And you'd be like, okay, so I get on the bus. Like, what are we doing? Like, what are you talking about? I had a job when I was 3 years old and I was making 2 nickels. Like, why did you do that job then if you're only making nickels? Because I needed money for bread. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm like, okay, but like, I mean, I work at Taco Bell. I make way more money than that. Like, the thing is, kids, like, comparing your own struggles to your kids' struggles mitigates their struggles. You know what I'm saying? Because their experience is their experience. And you can't compare your experience to it because it was a different day. You're a different person with different parents, a different environment. I think that I projected a lot of like how I saw the world, how I perceived success, and projected that onto our kids. This is what you're expected to do because this is what I was expected to do. This is what was expected of me, and the expectations that were put on me were not fair to me. You know what I'm saying? I should have been able to be a kid. I shouldn't have been ready to move out at 19 years old. You know what I'm saying? I
think this is to each his own.
I mean, maybe it is, and I'm not saying that everything about my childhood was horrible, because it definitely wasn't. It's just that being in that position as the oldest child of a single mom, with 3 kids, I was shouldered with a lot of the child rearing responsibilities because I was there. You know what I'm saying? Picking the kids up from school, making sure they eat, do their homework. Like, that all fell on me from a pretty young age. I think 13. I think at 13 is when 13 or 14 is when I started having to get my brother and sister off the bus. And so that meant that I couldn't do after school activities. I couldn't go hang out with my friends after I finished my homework because I had to take care of my brother and my sister. You know what I'm saying? So I was parenting from a very young age. And our kids didn't have to do that because our three youngest that lived with us full time, they were all the same age. So they didn't have to babysit each other. They didn't have to get nobody off the school bus. When they were all able to be latchkey kids and come in after school themselves. Maybe I think probably about 13,
Mm-hmm.
they started coming home by themselves and they had a key to the door. So if one of them had an after school activity, they could go do their after school activity and that wouldn't disrupt the whole rest of the house. You know what I'm saying? They didn't have to be responsible for their other siblings and making sure they did this or that. Like they were able to be independent and do whatever it is that they wanted to do after school. So they had a lot of freedom in that way. And so like me trying to make them into me, like I ended up, traumatizing them in a way because my mom traumatized me in a lot of ways by forcing me into a parenthood role when I was way too young for that. And of course it wasn't intentional. She didn't do that on purpose. It was out of necessity. You know what I'm saying? It just was what it was because that's what it had to be. And growing up like that, I just looked at things like that. Like, this is just what it is, and I have to do what needs to be done. I looked at life at a very, this is our present circumstances, and we got to work through this and get to a better position. It was just very matter of fact to me. And our kids, they have passions and dreams and things that they want to pursue, and they want to be happy and have friends and, you know what I'm saying, do all the stuff that kids do, young people do. But I have been conditioned to just do what needs to be done. And I was in like survival mode for the first 35 years of my life. I was constantly in survival mode, and I was trying to force my kids to be in survival mode too. And I didn't realize how unhappy I was until I got out of survival mode. And my kids started going through the stuff that they were going through, and it just took me back to when I was that age and, having to struggle and get through all of this stuff. And I didn't realize how much of a toll that it took on me. And then I pushed my kids into the same situation where they are right now in a lot of ways still in survival mode. And it's not until like I got here and like started really talking to and having conversations with them that I really started to reconnect with my childhood self. The feelings that I had back then that I just denied, ignored, and covered up. And I didn't allow my kids the space to have feelings. You know what I'm saying? It was always like, suck it up, buttercup, things need to be done. You just got to get over it because things need to be done. And it has led to, now we're able to have those conversations and understand those things and have those conversations without blame and pointing fingers. There's still anger and there's still frustration and all that stuff. But I feel like we have a deeper understanding because I have been able to reconnect with like my childhood self and my childhood feelings and all the things that I went through, that I just struggled through and just buried it all down deep inside. I've been able to reconnect with those feelings so that now I can better understand and reconnect with my kids.
I can't say the same as far as the childhood. Growing up, I was the oldest, just like you was the oldest.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have all the responsibilities that you had. Growing up, my mom was my best friend. It's crazy how it was then and the way it is now, but it is what it is.
Like me, another tell the truth.
No,
Tell me.
I'm not gonna do that because that'd be too emotional for me. But yeah, I didn't have all those responsibilities. You know, I had 3 brothers. Yeah, 3 younger brothers. Um, my mom taught me how to cook. I think that was our closest. That's what really bonded us.
Me too.
Her teaching me how to cook.
Yeah, me
And even to this day, if I was to have a conversation with her, you know, at some point it will be, yo, I cook better than you, or you know what I'm saying? Even though she knows, if she's watching when we do this, I'd still cook better than you, without a doubt. But anyway, I didn't have all the responsibilities that you had, you know, because she was always there.
Mm-hmm.
When I got out of school, she was there. So I had the typical childhood. Coming home from school, having to clean the bathroom, you know, and that was it pretty much. And do my homework, which I probably didn't do. I was ready to go play basketball. That was it for me. So I don't know how I got to be as independent as I got to be. Maybe because, you know, a relationship that I didn't have with my father, so I wanted to get out.
Mm.
You know, so I had to man up. And like you're saying, with our kids, when they was growing up, they didn't have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because we was doing fairly good when we was living in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
We was doing pretty good for ourselves, so they didn't have to worry about where the next meal came.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, did they have clothes for school when school started? They didn't have to worry about that. I mean, I didn't either. So it's just hard for me. It was hard to say, yo, man, why is everything going the way it's going when you have everything you need and everything you want? And that was my issue with the situation. That's why I'm saying I couldn't have this like just on me, because I'll be all over the place, because I still have questions, but I'm fine with not having answers, because I don't know where it would go at.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how I would react, because what you're not going to do is like belittle what I did.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because we actually did go to work every day and you know, deal with the stresses of life, and still come home and put food on the table and make sure you did your homework, and you know, and this and that and that and that.
But that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, I understand that.
You know what I'm saying? And
But your point is you're not gonna belittle that, though.
Wait, how many times did you tell the kids you're not gonna get rewards for what you're supposed to do?
Yeah.
How many times did we say that? You don't get a cookie or brownie point or a trophy for doing what you're supposed to do.
No, that's not what we said.
Wait, what I'm saying is like that's the bare minimum.
But no, what we said was
If you
want to do something, no. What we said was,
you can do what you want to do as long as you do what you're supposed
to do.
Right.
Right. Same thing.
But what I'm saying though is I feel like as they got older, teenagers and stuff, I think that we were both triggered by what we created. Like we wanted our kids to be able to talk to us and have opinions. And how many times did we sit up at, you know, while one of us is cooking dinner and just having debates with the kids? You know what I'm saying? Even when they were little. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so
we raised them to have opinions and be able to share their feelings and talk to us and stuff like that. But then when their opinion became critical of us, we got defensive. We shut down. And I think that as parents, accepting criticism is so hard, especially when the person that is coming to you with criticism doesn't fully understand what it took to provide, even if they felt like what you provided wasn't enough in some areas, like emotionally, mental health wise, things like that. Even though some of the areas that we were lacking were critical to them and affected them deeply, it's very hard as a parent knowing how much you sacrifice, how much time you put in, how much energy, how draining it is, how painful it is sometimes to be a parent and try to be present and show up for your kids for everything. Hearing the criticism from somebody who doesn't understand the backside of it, the admin side of it, the emotional, hysterical side of it that they don't see or experience, getting that criticism from them is very, very, very hard, very humbling, and accepting it with children who have a lot more knowledge about mental health than we did growing up. You know what I'm saying? Mental health was like white people stuff. Therapy was white people stuff. Like, who's doing that? Who has time? Who has money? Like, get over it and do what you need to do. You know what I'm saying? But our kids growing up in a new era where mental health is always at the forefront of what people are talking about. Like, there's so much information about mental health that our kids were having access to. Our kids were actually in therapy for a period. So it's like they had more knowledge about mental health than we did. So them coming to us with this was like, get out of here. Get out of here and get over it. But now that I have educated myself, that I have, been working on healing and stuff like that, I can understand why immediately I want to go into defense mode when I hear any criticism from my kids, because it's so hard. It's so hard to hear. And I think that's why all of this pain and trauma has been passed down from generation to generation to generation to generation, is because parents don't want to hear about themselves. And in hearing about yourself and how your trauma and your experience impacts your kids negatively, and choosing not to hear it. Like, we're in a generation where kids go no contact with their kids for stuff like that. And I don't want to live my life without my kids. I don't want a life without my kids. And so I'm going to be better for them so that they can see what it looks like when you are heard and loved, and somebody cares enough to change the language they use and honor your feelings and be there for you, not just financially and physically, but emotionally. So they can see that what that looks like in a parent, and they can turn around and they can do better with their kids. And then improve generation on generation, because what we've been doing as families is not working. It's not working. All the family secrets and hiding things and not telling the truth, it needs to stop. It absolutely needs to stop. And so yeah, I am tired, like, just from this whole conversation, because it's a lot. It's a lot. But I just wanted to share, you know what I'm saying? Because again, like what we've said before, like when you move, you're not moving away from your problems. You're still the same person, and your problems are going to follow you no matter where you go. So if you've got family problems, if you've got issues with your kids, with your parents, if there's a way to resolve or move forward or get some therapy before you go, because the distance is the emotional distance will grow with physical distance. It's not gonna make it better. So
This was a good one.
yeah, it was a long one. I wasn't anticipating it being long.
This is a good one. I'm not going to touch this one.
What you mean you're not going to touch it?
I'm not going to do a part 2 to this one. I'm going to move on. I'm going to skate my way on out of this one.
Why?
I don't know. Like I said, I think I'll be all over the place. Because again, I grew up different. You know, I didn't have an opinion. My opinion was my parents' opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm from the era to where if adults are talking, kids are not in the room.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I'm from that ilk, from that cloth. You know what I'm saying? So my thoughts is a whole lot different in a lot of this. And again, it's because of the way I was raised and the way I grew up. You know, I didn't sit in the same room with the adults.
You know? But our kids are adults now.
No, I'm talking about. But yes, they are. But certain situations they still shouldn't sit in.
Why?
Because some conversations I don't think they're ready for.
I mean, I think there's some. You know? I think there's some conversations that like you have in different ways at different times with different people. Kids are not. You know, and I think there are like people saying kids should stay in a kid's place. Like,
definitely.
And the statement itself is not wrong, but the way that it was implemented was that kids couldn't have thoughts and feelings and opinions. Not that you should have child appropriate conversations around children and that you don't necessarily need to have adult topic conversations around children. That's what it sounds like it's saying. But when you say a child should stay in a child's place, means that you should be quiet and still. And
I understand what you're saying, but I disagree with that.
But and that's
not what you're saying, but I disagree with the sentiment.
With the implementation of a child should stay in a child's place.
Right.
The intention behind it is complete control. You know what I'm saying? And not saying that you shouldn't have control over your children, but teaching them that they're not allowed to have feelings or thoughts or speak. It perpetuates silence when they should not be. It tells them that they shouldn't speak up at times when they should speak up. When there are things that are wrong and they don't tell you out of fear. That's the kind of environment that you're creating by implementing a child should be in a child's place in that way. You know, and I think that I think we did better than our parents in that way, that our kids feel like they can speak to us and have certain conversations with us now. And not have to worry about feeling judged or bad. I think that stigma of bad, sometimes I say it now in a joking way, like, ooh, that baby look bad. But even though we say it a lot of times in a playful way, kids know what bad means. They know that it's not good. And sometimes they internalize that if they hear it over and over and over and over again. So, I've been more mindful about using that word about kids because, there's so many better words that we can use for children that are mischievous or curious or has a lot of energy that are not negative. So just my little tip.
Okay, I have a question for you.
What's up?
On a lighter note. Out of the kids, which one would come to you with the craziest?
Ariana.
Really?
Ariana be telling me wild stories. And I'd be like, I
I don't know who. For me, it'll be either Naja or Zanaya.
Naja be having some crazy stories.
I think something's wrong with Naja mentally. Naja is like a nutbag. She is.
I always tell my kids be good when I get off the phone with them. Anybody I love, you know, I tell them be good. Naja's response is no bars. Like, she's not gonna go to jail. That's the only thing she can promise. No bars.
And then she would call me or text me and be like, Daddy, if I get locked up, will you get me out of jail? So how is she saying no bars to you and telling me that she's about to get locked up? The same daughter now.
No, but Ariana consistently has
No,
wild
I mean
stories.
back then. I don't mean now.
Yes, back then. And you know how she's
a weirdo anyway.
You know how she tells stories? Like the way she tells stories. I'd be like, what? For real? Like, you really be getting into it. Like, she's narrating in a, like, she should just have a story time TikTok and just tell her stories on TikTok. Cause
it'd be too animated,
it's
man.
So funny. Her stories are so funny.
I got one for you. Remember when she used to talk at one time? She'd be like, "Well, I don't know what's going on." She's a weirdo.
When she was being silly, yeah. Ariana's a character, y'all. Oh my God.
All of them are.
Yeah, Tobias, the sweetest, most aggravating child you have ever met in your freaking life.
The devil in disguise.
A Velcro child. I remember one time I was making a burger. Y'all might not know this about me, but when I make my food, I plate it. My food.
I know what you're going to say.
My food be looking pretty, okay? I need my food not only to look good, I need it to taste good and look good. You know what I'm saying? I want it to look like it just came out of a 5-star restaurant. You know, I'm placing my lettuce, you know what I'm saying? So all the fluffy ridges on it. Look, okay? So I made a burger. It was immaculate. It was a patty, had some good fancy cheese on it, lettuce, tomato.
She's describing a burger, y'all.
Seasoned the tomato. Homemade pickles. You know what I'm saying? Toasted bun. It was a beauty. And Tobias was like, your burger gonna fall over. Your burger gonna fall. It's gonna fall on the floor because you clumsy. I know your burger gonna fall off. And it was high too. It was tall with the ingredients. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, leave me alone, Tobias. I'm walking away. The top part of my burger just fall off on the floor. The way he cackled. He almost didn't make it. He didn't make it through life because he was about to get ended that day. He was about to get ended. I was so mad.
So your burger fell.
I was so mad. He is the sweetest, most chaotic person I've ever met in my life.
Remember the time that he told Zanaya she was going to break her arm? And then she broke her arm?
Now, you know Tobias is in the room. If Tobias is the one being like, I don't think that's a good idea.
It's not a good idea.
Don't do it. But Zanaya was like, shut up. And she did a cartwheel off the bed onto the floor.
And Tobias told her, you're going to break your arm.
We still laugh about that because that's the only time Tobias has ever been the voice of reason.
And she broke her arm.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. We done.
Well, now we got to talk about Zanaya. And we mentioned Zanaya. Zanaya is the most artistic, organized.
And that's the one I like the least.
Go to sleep early. Zanaya is like a grandma in a child's body. You ain't never have to tell her to clean up her room. You ain't never have to tell her wash her clothes because she washed her clothes on a certain day from a certain time. And she bet nobody be using the washing machine during her clothes washing time.
So she had OCD?
No, she ain't have OCD. She just I think Zanaya is wild inside of herself. Mentally, she's wild inside. And so this is just my thoughts. And so she creates organization and cleanliness around her because it helps her mentally. If it's chaos going on inside and outside, it's no good for her. So she keeps everything clean and organized.
She gets on my nerve.
Zanaya is.
She gets on my nerves.
Zanaya
She'll just message me.
She's a goofball.
She just messages me out the blue.
She bullies you.
She'll message me out of the blue. Hey, ugly.
She bullies Stacy. She bullies him.
I get ready to get in the car to go somewhere. She'll come out of nowhere. I'm like, Zanaya, you're not going with me. How much you want to bet? I am going with you. You're not going with me. She's going with me. She's going.
He be in the bathroom brushing his teeth, getting his keys, put his shoes on at the door, open the door. She already in the passenger seat.
I do not like her.
She ain't had brushed the teeth, combed the hair, nothing. When he saw her last time, he was like, whatever, you're not going with me. 5 minutes later, she's dressed, hair combed, teeth brushed, her bag in the car, nicely waiting. She's a daddy girl. She don't play by her daddy. And she also bullies him. So anyway.
Any more?
No, this was a long one, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you took something away from it.
There's Ty too. But
yes.
I'll talk about Ty later.
Yeah, Ty's the oldest. Yeah. She didn't grow up in the house with us, but when she is with us, it's like she's always been there. She's a goofball.
Oh my God.
Like, she is so fun. Like, if y'all have ever seen, I don't know if y'all seen these videos on TikTok, but there's this girl that's always messing with her mom, putting her shoes on, putting her clothes on, just being annoying, but it's too funny for you to be mad. That's Ty. If y'all have seen it, that's her. Wow.
Okay. True.
That's all. Thank y'all.
Testimony Tuesday.
Testimony
See y'all
Tuesday.
next week.
Make sure you like, share, and y'all that be peeking in the windows and you be in here every episode, every live, in there in the comments and stuff. But you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. It's cheap, meaning free. We're not going to ask you for anything, not even your soul. Just hit the button, and then you won't miss any of our lives. You won't miss any of our Testimony Tuesdays. And then, whatever else we got going on, you won't miss out on it. Like, it's a win-win. Hit the subscribe button. We appreciate y'all. Till next time.
Peace.